Hello and welcome to the Max Bernier Show. My name is Daniel Tyree. I'm the Executive Director of the People's Party of Canada, but today I am your host. We have some fun topics to discuss today, Maxim.
Yes, Daniel, that's nice to be together today, just before Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to end the year strong with a great episode. Today we'll be talking a little bit about climate change and the COP28 conference that just wrapped up. We'll talk a bit about the housing crisis, recent developments from both the establishment parties, the Conservatives and the Liberals. And then we'll have a couple smaller conversations on some other smaller developments, some transgender controversies here in Ontario, as well as the controversy around the renaming of Dundas Square in Toronto. But let's just dive straight into things. Let's start it off with the climate change. Last week was the COP28 conference, which is the world's biggest kind of climate change conference. 200 representatives from 200 countries around the world come together and virtue signal about how they're going to save the planet.
Coming by jets.
Yeah, exactly. They all fly in on their private jets to lecture us on not using our cars to get to work. Our climate change minister, Stephen Guilbeault, was out there where he made a couple of announcements and lots of virtue signaling. The general sentiment coming out of the conference is that they're going to reduce production and consumption of fossil fuels globally.
Yeah, you're right about that. That was part of their press release. That's their goal, and that's the first step to phase out gas and oil.
Yeah, I guess phase out is not the politically correct term anymore. It's shut down production and consumption. That's different.
Yeah, that's different. So they're playing with words, but we know that at the end, that's their goal. And also, like you just said, for us, we won't participate in that because we will withdraw from the Paris Accord. And, personally, if we have more or less CO2 emissions, I don't mind, I don't care. And they just want to destroy our way of life. If we're doing that in Western countries, everybody will be poor. And in the development world, they won't be able to be richer. So I'm not surprised about that, because it's all radical environmentalists and leftists, and starting by our own environment minister.
The eco-radical in chief.
Absolutely. So I'm not surprised about that, and that's why we must fight that. And as you know, the Conservative they're okay with that. They're okay with the goal.
Yeah.
Maybe they will change the way to achieve that goal. But for us, we're not okay with the goal. We don't want to change or diminish our emissions. It's not important for us, and we won't save the planet. We know it.
Yeah, ultimately, it's about this net zero 2050 target, right?
Yeah.
So the Liberals and the Conservatives, they might quibble about the carbon tax, but ultimately, they're in agreement on these net zero goals from the United Nations, from this Paris Accord. So you mentioned withdrawing from the Paris Accord entirely. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because a lot of people are very concerned about climate change. We have been indoctrinated with these ideas for my whole life. So why are you so ardently against the Paris Accord? Why would you withdraw?
Yeah, because there's no climate emergency. It's all that logic that tomorrow, if we don't do anything, the world would end. They were saying that I'm older than you, Daniel, so I can say that. They were saying that in the 1970s.
Yeah.
I remember at that time, in newspapers, if you do anything, actually oceans will raise and New York City won't be New York City.
Yeah.
That was written in newspapers in 1970.
Yeah.
And they were saying the same thing with the ice cap. If you do anything, it won't be there anymore.
Yeah.
But what they were saying at that time, in 10 years. So, we are in 2023 and nothing happened. They're using that to scare people. And these kind of conference is there to scare people.
Yeah.
If you don't do anything, that will be the end of the world. You must act. But they want to do that to control us.
Yeah.
They're using fear like they did with COVID-19 to change our behavior. And they want us to, listen to the government. The government know better than us.
Yeah.
No, the government doesn't know better than us. We are. So we won't scare anybody. We're telling them the truth. Nothing will happen. The climate change, and the climate always changes, actually. A couple of 1,000 years.
Yeah, 12,000 years ago.
Yeah, we were under ice here in Canada,
Yeah.
thanks to climate change. And I don't know what will happen in another 10,000 years, but let's build a better world, and we are able to do that without imposing any regulation and following that ideology. And by the way, that it's not working. They say, "Oh, this is a new target," but every time these leftists and radical environmentalists are saying to the government, "You are not able to achieve your target." Harper was not able to achieve his target. Trudeau was not able to achieve his target that he decided in 2015. And now they have a new target. They won't be able to achieve that. And if they are achieving that, it's because we are in big trouble. And, we won't be able to use our cars anymore if something happened like that. But it's not something that we must be afraid of. And we cannot save the planet.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a little bit. I'm looking at that debate, and I believe that we have more people now that understand the reality.
Yeah.
And because it's not new for us, Daniel, you know that we said that in 2019 in our election. It was part of our campaign, and it will be part of our campaign for the next general election. It's all common sense. We know a guy that is speaking about common sense, but for him, it's only a slogan.
Yeah.
And it's not based on real policies that will embrace common sense.
Yeah.
It's just because it's a nice word and people like it, is using that. But for us, it's reality.
Yeah.
If you want to fight common sense, we must withdraw from the Paris Accord.
Yeah, the whole environmental movement has become singularly focused on carbon emissions, right?
Yeah.
And I for most of my life, I would have considered myself an environmentalist. I love getting out into the woods and enjoying that. I think it's an important part of Canadian culture. But no one talks about, pragmatic solutions to preserve our environment. Now it's just reduce carbon emissions, which really comes down to, impacting our global productivity, especially in a northern cold nation such as Canada, where you really can't live without carbon
and we know, Daniel, that the wind is not always there, and the sun is not always shining. So we need a sustainable energy, and that's oil and gas.
And like carbon is literally not pollution, right? It is plant food. It's an essential part of
life.
The carbon cycle, which we all learned about in grade 9 biology.
CO2, it's people, they forgot their biology.
They don't know how vaccines work. They don't know the carbon cycle. We've got to send everyone back to school. The other thing, kind of funny, that came out of that conference was a new cap and trade system. We've seen this in pockets of the country. There's a pretty big one in Quebec.
In my own province,
yes. Exactly. So the cap and trade system, it sets a limit on carbon emissions, and then businesses can exceed that limit by purchasing credits from other companies. Now, the Guilbeault, the Liberals, announced that they were going to be bringing in a new cap and trade system in Canada, but specifically to target, I believe they called it enteric methane emissions. This is not a term I learned about. This is not a term I learned about in grade 9 biology, unlike the carbon cycle. It's their fancy word for cow farts.
Oh, okay.
So apparently, cows burping and farting are really driving methane. So they think a creative market-based solution to this is offering a new cap and trade system. And they've tried to sell this as it would be beneficial to farmers because I guess now they could sell each other carbon credits or methane credits in this case. What do you think about that?
I can laugh a little bit about that because it won't work, and it's another kind of regulations against the farmers. And I don't believe that farmers will jump and be very happy.
I can make so much money. I can sell my cow fart credits.
They won't do that. So it's a new regulation, and we'll have a new one in a year. They're going to try to bring other things. And
Are you sure? You don't think the farmers will go out there and start counting their cows' farts and are trying to optimize, saying, I can get under budget this year. My cow fart budget will be low. And I can just sell
they may try to change their nutrition to be sure that, So
hopefully grass-fed cows fart less.
But I believe that farmers know better than us what
Yeah.
to do and what kind of nutrition they must give to their cows. And but I'll be curious to be on a farm during Christmas time and having that discussion with farmers and listening to what they think about that. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll go in Beauce this Christmas time and I'll see some of my old friend farmers.
Yeah.
I'll ask them about that.
Your friends in the dairy business.
Yeah.
Excellent. I do want to move on to our next topic, which is the housing crisis. This has become.
This is serious.
This is serious. We have to put back on our serious faces. No more cow farts. The housing crisis has become like a central topic in Canadian politics. It was kind of festering under the surface for a few years, but now it's become central to the conversation. It's one of Pierre Poilievre's main topics, and the Liberals have adjusted to focus on that. They even they shuffled their cabinet to put one of their stronger ministers under the housing file to respond more appropriately. So there's been a couple big developments on this file in the last week or two. The first one, Mr. Poilievre, our friend over there, released his new groundbreaking, highly acclaimed documentary, Housing Hell. Did you watch this, Maxim?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, what did you think? Did you get through the whole thing? It was a bit long. It was a bit boring.
I was able to, watch everything. And I must admit that Pierre is a good communicator. But, if you look at it, he did the impossible to speak about our housing crisis without saying anything and without mentioning the word immigration.
Yeah.
Didn't say anything about immigration. It's not because we have too many people that are coming to Canada that we have that crisis. It's because that we are not building houses as fast as we can. Mm-hmm. But I like one of his data statistics that he had in his in that video. He said that in the 1970s, we built about 230,000 houses, and 50 years ago. And today, and last year, in 2023, we built about 230,000 houses. But we have about double our population, and we're able to build the same amount of houses. So that being said, it's a big problem, yes. But the solution for that will be to build about 3 million houses in the next 3 years to be able just to sustain the demand.
Yeah.
So Pierre, what he's telling people is just telling them, I will solve that crisis in 5 years. Because, we cannot create and build houses to sustain that demand. The problem is not that we don't build enough houses. The problem is we have too many people, and we can solve that by just ending mass immigration tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We won't have that problem anymore. We can do that. So immigration is the problem. Mm-hmm. Our immigration policies is the problem. So we need to change that. We need to have a responsible, sustainable immigration policy, and that's us. So let's end mass immigration, and we will solve that challenge that we have in this country. So, but also at the same time, when he's saying that I will build how many houses that we need, when Pierre Poilievre said that, he cannot control that. Mm-hmm. It's, building houses, it's the private sector first. And second, all these regulations are under the provincial jurisdictions and most of the time provincial jurisdictions. So he will interfere in provincial affairs or municipal affairs to tell a mayor in Saint-Georges-de-Beauce what to do and which kind of regulations he must have. So the big fat government will come and say to everybody in this country, you must do that. I believe that these mayors across the country know better than Pierre Poilievre in Ottawa, mm-hmm. and they will change the regulations if they need to.
Yeah. So in that entire 15-minute video, he didn't say the words immigration or anything like it.
Yeah.
Not even once. He alluded to it a few times. He talked about increasing demand,
Yeah.
which is entirely from immigration. We don't have any natural population growth in Canada.
Yeah.
So any increased demand is caused by our immigration policy. So he talks about increased demand a couple of times. He talks about our growing population, but he doesn't talk about immigration at all, which is such an important part because he talks about it shouldn't be like this in Canada. The supply-demand factors are not in a way that our housing prices should be this high. Well, it's like, clearly they are because the demand is rapidly exceeding the supply, which is largely stagnant. So, like, it's just so disingenuous. And it's just this result of making solutions that sound and feel good, but not attracting the controversy, but not addressing the issue, really. The other thing that
we are not surprised about that. That's the way he's doing politics, just try to please to everybody. And like I said, in politics, if you want to help people, you tell them the truth. If you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's what Pierre Poilievre is doing right now.
Yeah. The other thing that's been bothering me is he keeps talking about how we have so much space for houses. How, like we have the biggest land, the second best land mass in the world. We have so much space. Why can't we just make more houses? Again, it's such a disingenuous argument. Like,
it is not an argument.
Exactly. Like we know that a significant portion of this country is just not habitable. Like
you want to have a house in Nunavut? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Like these are just not
I have
areas.
nothing against people living over there, but for me, I don't want to be there.
There's lots of wide open spaces. You could build houses. Where would they work? Where would they go to the grocery store? Where would they? All these things don't make any sense. The reality is that people need to live near jobs, so the bulk of them go to the big cities, and there are limited spaces in those cities. Like literally in Vancouver, there's only so much space between the water and the mountains. And in Toronto, there's only so much space between Lake Ontario and the Greenbelt. So like where the space is pretty limited.
And we know that 41% of our immigrants are going to Toronto and Vancouver. And that's normal. Big cities, yes, they want to go where there are jobs, and so this country can be huge. But people are living near the border of the U.S., and that's the reality.
Yeah. So riddled with issues, that documentary, that long social media video. But what's been interesting to watch as well has been the Liberals' response. So they've been kind of scrambling over the last few months as their polling has dipped to try and find a solution to this issue that has become incredibly popular. They had a big cabinet retreat at the end of the summer. They shuffled their cabinet to put Sean Fraser in charge of it, who, funnily enough, was in charge of immigration before moving over to housing. You create the problem in immigration. Now he's going to create the solution in housing, right? Sean, unsurprisingly, is also not talking about immigration. This week, he released his own fancy social media video announcing their solution, finally, their innovative solution on the housing file, which is to look back in time to World War II to figure out how they solved this problem before. And their solution, when those great Canadian heroes were off across the seas, we wanted to make sure they had houses as they were coming back. So the government made a program called Victory Homes, where they pre-approved the designs for small modular houses so that they wouldn't have to go through the approval process on every new house. Now there was designs that could be built in all the areas of the country so that soldiers returning could have homes. So the Liberals are going to adopt this and modernize this and offer a new kind of Victory Home solution with streamlined, pre-approved designs that are more modern. So what do you think about this new solution from the Liberals?
But we must ask the question where these new Victory Home will be built. I just said that 41% are going to Toronto and Vancouver, and the space over there is limited. And so usually the market will want to build, and if you have a land downtown Vancouver or Toronto, you want to be sure that you'll have enough income coming from that piece of land. And I believe that they will build big buildings and apartments or other things. So we are a big country, but the places to put these little house is not very great, in big cities. Yeah, you can have that in Saskatoon and other places, but immigrants are not going there.
Yeah.
So it's a Band-Aid solution again. It's a Band-Aid solution.
Yeah, and I just kind of find it funny, to be honest. Like, it's one thing, the government, rapidly mobilizing to ensure that the heroes that risk their lives across the ocean coming back can have homes and jobs. That sounds virtuous to me. Now, the government must rapidly mobilize to enable foreign invaders coming into our country to make sure they have homes. Like, this is a radically different thing being offered. I don't quite understand it. And I'm skeptical to see some of the plans coming out of it. So, like, we've seen a new affordable housing development in Ontario come out last month. And it's basically little shipping containers, right? Like, what are these pre-approved houses going to look like?
Yeah,
they're going to be the basics. It's going to be a one-bedroom home.
Curious.
It has a
But
water.
That's establishment politicians. They need to be out there in the news, on TV, telling something to people that was okay. They care. They're doing something. They have an answer.
Yeah.
So that's the way. That's their way to do that. But
it doesn't matter if it actually works.
Yeah.
It just has to look good and sound good.
That's it. It's looking good. And, like Polyev saying, oh, we're going to build more. Who's going to build there? Where are you going to build these houses?
Yeah.
And, if you think that we have too many people, the solution is simple. And you control that, and you can stop that tomorrow, and it will be effective tomorrow. If you try to change regulations that you don't control, that it's a municipalities who's controlling that, and you don't control, you want to interfere there, you're going to bring, the federal government dealing with provincial affairs without respecting the Constitution. You think you'll be able to do that in a month, in a year? No, you won't be. But having your new policy, ending mass immigration, you can do that after one cabinet meeting.
Yeah.
You start the discussion at 9 o'clock in the morning, a Thursday morning. No, it's a Wednesday usually. Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, and at 12, the solution is there and implemented.
It couldn't be a more obvious solution. It couldn't be an easier one to put in place, but they're just playing politics, right?
Yeah.
Putting out solutions that sound good, that'll appease people, hopefully, and not upset the apple cart, like having a discussion on immigration.
Because their goal is to appeal to the emotions of people, not to their intelligence. And so we are doing politics differently. We are telling people that solution is not working. This is why. And you need to think about it. And we believe that people will be on our side because that's the truth, based on facts, on reason and logic. So, but they're playing politics. Polyev and Trudeau are the same on that. They have the same position, like on the war in Ukraine, and I can go on and go on, but yeah.
All right. A few other things I want to discuss before we wrap it up for today, some a bit lighter topics. We have here in Ontario a bit of a transgender controversy that's come up. There is a transgender male in Orangeville, Ontario, who has been participating in a youth girls swim club. So the Orangeville Otters, that operates out of a community center in Orangeville, they have a small swim group of girls 8 to 12 years old, and a 50-year-old Nicholas Cepeda, who now goes by Melody Weishart, has been attending and participating in these youth swim groups, and even showering, changing in the girls' change room. We are told that he is not undertaken any sort of reassignment surgeries.
Okay.
That
he's still biologically a man.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, he's going to be biologically a man. But he's still an intact man.
Okay.
If you know what I mean. So what do you think about this, Max? Should 50-year-old dudes be in swim classes with 8 to 12-year-olds?
No. If I'm not wrong, Daniel, I believe that if you read the criminal code, we have something against things like that. Yeah. When you have an adult, that is taking a shower in front of kids
Yeah, or exposing himself in any way.
from the other sex.
Yeah.
I believe that it may be against the criminal code.
When I was 8 years old, I wasn't totally comfortable going into the men's swim change room and seeing all that. I can't imagine being a little girl.
Yeah. So it's sad that we have to have a discussion about that in our country because it's happening there, but I believe that it's happening also in other provinces.
Yeah.
And that's why we will fight that. It's not our values. I always said, if you don't like your body, you can do what you want with your body at 18 years old, but why exposing yourself? And what I don't understand is these parents that are, there with their little girls, and they're okay with that. They won't speak out. They won't say anything because I believe that they know deep inside that it's not okay.
Yeah.
But they're scared. They're scared about, all the media. And if you speak against them, that you are, a racist and bigot and all that. So they must have the courage to speak against that. The parents there.
But funnily enough, when Rebel News went to go expose this, the parents had more of an issue with Rebel News and them coming in with cameras, which, to be fair, is also inappropriate. You don't want people with cameras coming in and recording little girls.
Yeah.
But you also don't want 50-year-old dudes in the change room with little girls.
Yeah.
So they have a problem with Rebel News coming up, but they
tolerate.
But they tolerate. They don't even tolerate. They defend these perverts that want to go. That are either exhibitionists or they're trying to scope out little girls. It's just disgusting. And the fact that no one has the moral fiber to step up and say this is wrong.
But also the fact that the mainstream media won't speak about that.
No.
It's wrong.
No.
That is immoral. We must stop that. But we cannot have a discussion, in the politically correct Canada. You cannot have a discussion about that. But we are opening that debate. And like I said, when we created the People's Party, there's no taboo subject. We're going to tell the truth as it is, and you like it or not, this is what we believe. This is the vision that we have for our country. And my vision does not include a guy like that will go and in a changing room of little girls and saying that, I'm a little girl and I want to be part of your team. No, you're not. How old is the guy? 50. Shame on him.
It's mental illness. It's time for Canadians to put their foot down and to put a foot down and have some basic morality to defend the innocence of children. These are basic values that were sacrosanct when I was a child and have disappeared in just my lifetime. The last thing I want to talk about is some cultural erasure here in Canada. So just last night, actually, the Toronto City Council voted to rename Yonge and Dundas Square. So that's Toronto's knockoff Times Square downtown. Henry Dundas is being canceled for the role he played in the slave trade, which is quite ironic because he was an abolitionist. He was for abolishing the slave trade, but now he's being canceled because of that. And they are renaming it to, what is it? Sonkafa Square?
What's that?
So they have chosen this name. It's apparently it's Ghanaian in origin. Ironically, it means recognizing and reflecting upon our history. So they're erasing our history and replacing it with this bizarre African virtue signal about recognizing our history, I guess.
At the same time that they're doing the opposite.
Right? Like, they're all about recognizing everyone else's history, I guess, not preserving and understanding our own. Yeah. So what do you think about this? What do you think about these cultural things being stripped from us?
I believe also that has been approved unanimously.
There were two opposing voices, but it was like 19-2 or something. Like
So, why erasing the history? Why doing that? It's all in the logic of the wokeism. We, Western countries, white countries, are bad and we are the oppressor. And, we must change that. And they find an excuse and now they're putting another name. We must stop that. It happened in Victoria. It happened in Vancouver with Johnny McDonald's, and it's happening everywhere. Erasing our history. Yeah, I believe that altogether this country has a great history. But maybe in times in our history we did something, but at that time it was different. We must acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But today,
and those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, right?
Absolutely.
History is messy.
That's it.
But it's important to understand
what
the messy
happened.
Aspects as well.
Yeah. So I'm against that, and having these experts, woke experts that are coming to say, oh, that must be the name and that must be what we must do.
Yeah.
They are imposing their woke ideology about their idea to erase our history and our civilizations. We must not accept that.
That's what the left does, though, right? They get
And
into
they're
power.
very good at it.
They get into power, and they already have their experts already at the top of their own institutions, and they wield power aggressively. They destroy our history. They replace it with new things. And the conservatives, the people on the so-called right in Canada, when they get in power, they don't do this.
No, they are afraid.
Maybe they'll put the brakes on for a little bit, or they'll slow down this cultural this cultural erasure. But they never go back and put back up the statues, and they never entrench these things in our culture into law. It's just a pause button. Yeah. Until the left can get back into power and start destroying everything, tearing things down.
We need more. We need to stop that. And that's Trudeau, Poilievre, the NBP, the Green, they're all, pushing that ideology. And we are there. We are there. And that's why, I strongly believe that, it's going too far. I don't like it, but also I can see that people will stand up and speak out. The time will come. It took them 2 years for the COVID hysteria to stand up, and we had that freedom rally here in Ottawa. Something will happen. They think that it's okay, and they're pushing and pushing and pushing, but people won't be able to tolerate that. And we may have that common sense revolution, and that's what we are doing. I'm not afraid to speak against things like that and for our values and promoting our country, our way of life. But they did that in Montreal also. We have a lot of work to do.
Oh yeah. We need to get strong and bold, courageous politicians in.
And have the courage of our conviction.
Yeah, exactly. And ready to wield power and put this country back on track, not just getting into power to be in power.
Yeah.
All right. That's everything I wanted to talk about today, Max. Is there anything else
I want to wish you Merry Christmas, Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
And to our team here in Ottawa, but also to everybody. I hope you'll have a nice Christmas with your family, with your loved one, and have time to enjoy life, because we know that life is a little bit difficult right now. The economy is not going well. I believe that we are in a recession, but we need you strong and free, and take some time. And I hope that back after our Christmas holidays, that you'll be ready to do that fight, because I will travel across the country and meet you guys. And I want our party to be ready for the next election. Daniel is working hard on that. We'll do that together. There's hope. There's always hope.
Excellent. So that's a wrap for 2023, guys. That's the last show of the year. We'll be back bright and early in the new year with some more content for you all, folks. But until then, have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and stay strong and free.